We're good to begin.
Yes, Arup.
Good evening, colleagues, and welcome to this thematic track on resource efficiency as part of the summit today. On behalf of the entire TERI family, I welcome all of you to this session. And we are very excited to have a set of practitioners and thought leaders as part of the discussion today, and of course all of you in the audience today. The world today is currently facing one of the most challenging periods in recent history. The dual impact of a public health crisis compounded by an impending economic crisis. As India starts to mobilize in response to these events, it is imperative that we build back better, improving resilience and guaranteeing sustainability. And this pretty much is the ethos of this virtual summit today. Job, growth, and sustainability are the mantra for the Build Back Better narrative for India. Honorable Minister Shri Suresh Prabhu earlier today echoed the same as part of this summit. Interestingly, in India, the micro, small, and medium enterprises covering a range of sectors, account for 29% of our GDP and provide employment to an estimate of 110 million people. These have been severely impacted. The MSME sector, the skeleton of the Indian economy, interestingly, less than half, rely on grid electricity. Now, this clearly points out that sustainability needs to be at the center stage of our thinking and doing. Adoption of resource-efficient, cleaner production strategies can help MSMEs to reduce the production cost by optimal use of resources while reducing the environmental footprint through less waste generation for the same product output. Not top-down, but bottoms-up is the mantra for this thematic track. And importantly, taking sustainability and RECP, which is resource efficient cleaner production, closer to where people are. Has the pandemic made people open to change? Will a new philosophy of manufacturing and competitiveness prevail? Will the current situation provide an opportunity to move towards an efficient operations and enhance overall productivity and profitability of the MSME enterprises? To discuss these two broad questions, we are delighted to have a set of experienced practitioners and domain experts to discuss, deliberate, and share their experiences and perspectives. Without any further ado, I'd like to invite our first panelist, Dr. Mali Di Balakrishnan. Dr. Balakrishnan has a body of work over 2 decades on enhancing resource efficiency in SMEs in India and other South Asian countries, which have achieved significant savings in energy, water, and raw materials. Dr. Balakrishnan, if I may ask you to provide to begin the conversation today and provide your perspectives on how do you see what has been the impacts of RECP implementation, and importantly, what do you see are the challenges for scaling up RECP in the MSME sector? Dr. Balakrishnan.
Thank you, Arup, and a very good evening. So I will try to answer the questions which you just posed. So my perspective is based on our experience of implementing resource-efficient cleaner production, or RECP measures, in over 700 MSMEs across South Asia, including India, covering multiple sectors. The sectors cover manufacturing operations such as metal products, chemicals, textiles, food processing, etc., as well as services such as automobile service stations. Across sectors, savings in energy of up to 28%, water of up to 33%, materials of up to 27%, and reduction in hazardous waste up to 30% have been obtained. These savings have been achieved through implementing no or low-cost measures leading to quick wins. Paybacks have been well within a year. In the current economic crisis that is severely impacting the 63.4 million Indian MSMEs, enhancing resource efficiency is therefore especially relevant. RECP also contributes to the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, specifically SDG 9, Industry, Innovation and Infrastructure, SDG 12, Responsible Consumption and Production, and SDG 13, Climate Action. So, what are these measures that can lead to such attractive savings across MSMEs? Energy can be saved through various measures. Optimized lighting through increased use of daylight through polycarbonate roofing sheets and increased use of efficient light fixtures such as LEDs is one option. Compressed air is a common utility in MSMEs. Reduced leaks, reduced pressure, and reduced demand for compressed air can save energy substantially. So also heating energy optimization. Improved insulation on furnaces and heated baths, temperature control systems to avoid unnecessary heating, and controlling combustion parameters and recovering waste heat in boiler operations. Savings in materials can cover both raw materials and auxiliary materials such as oils, lubricants, etc. Material loss can be reduced by improved storage of raw materials, avoiding spillage, practicing collection of spills and internal reuse, and avoiding rejection of raw materials through process changes. For example, welding rods can be discarded only after reaching a certain minimal length. Galvanized iron sheets cutoffs can be avoided by welding the end pieces of one roll with start of the next. So these are some specific examples. Regarding water, savings can be realized by arresting leakages, using water cascading and rinsing processes, monitoring bath parameters, so only the exhausted baths are replaced, etc. So all these are examples of implementations that we have done on the ground in various industries, and the list goes on. So if RECP measures are obvious and evidently make excellent business sense, why is their adoption not commonplace? Here we have to put ourselves in the MSME's shoes. Are they able to systematically monitor the resource use? Are they aware of the benefits of RECP? If they are aware and interested, who can help them identify appropriate RECP measures, provide technical support and implementation, and quantify the economic and environmental benefits they would accrue? Can MSMEs pay for such services? Do they have the internal capacity to implement such measures and continue to maintain good operation standards? MSMEs are often constrained by limited staff and production deadlines. So RECP implementation, even if it is good for the health of their business, becomes a relatively low priority. MSMEs that have internal capacities and are progressive can overcome the limitations to some extent. However, even they need an enabling ecosystem. Certified providers of RECP consulting and support services, supportive customers looking to green their supply chain, financial products that motivate MSMEs to invest in mid to high cost RECP measures, clean tech suppliers who are willing to support this market, and finally, policies that encourage RECP implementation. Presently, RECP actions in MSMEs are occurring largely through third-party funding. For RECP implementation in MSMEs to become mainstream, greater awareness among the MSMEs is required, along with an enabling ecosystem created by a variety of stakeholders coming together. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Balakrishnan. You've raised a couple of good strands of discussions and issues. And herein, Dr. Balakrishnan, you talked about the what are the kind of offerings, what are the kind of services that that can be provided that that suits the taste and the pocket of the SMEs. Herein, I'd like to invite Amar. Amar has vast and varied experience in development, management, and implementation of multi-country, multi-stakeholder programs across sustainable consumption and production, resource efficiency, sustainable entrepreneurship, green financing, and circular economy. Amar, if I may ask you to come in here and share your perspectives on the point that Dr. Balakrishnan kind of touched upon. That the offerings of resource efficient cleaner production, what is the what do you think is the role of eco-inclusive social enterprises in the area of resource efficiency together with circular economy? How are these enterprises enabling the realization of the potential and helping the MSME sector? Your thoughts and perspectives.
Thank you, Arup. Firstly, I would like to take an opportunity to thank the organizers because I have a main reason to thank as well. Is that sometimes when we talk about MSMEs, we tend to lose the connection of MSMEs also with the eco-inclusive enterprises. It's a general statement that which we all have to accept it, that sometimes eco-inclusive enterprises are not considered as MSMEs or they don't come as a mainstream. To tell you a little about what I mean by eco-inclusive, because some probably might be confused about the term eco-inclusive, I would like to tell that as a seed, we do support the enterprises basically who are working in the environmental sector and also contributing to the society as overall. And also they are basically making the profit out of it. So that's why we termed the two coins as like the two terms together, eco and inclusive, as an eco-inclusive enterprises. Now, coming back to your question about how these eco-inclusive enterprises are, where we can see these eco-inclusive enterprises basically in terms of the resource efficiency, I would like to tell you that the core agenda or the core objective of any eco-inclusive enterprise itself is basically the circularity and the resource efficiency. So if I may tell, the whole innovation of the business model or the creating of the business idea itself of any eco-inclusive enterprise involves this kind of aspects. So I would like to tell that, there are 3 points. One is the product innovation. So you can take that, any product which is related to the reducing of water or a reduction of energy, and also at the same time, involving the society at large into their value chain. And the second way of the innovation, I would say it's the value chain innovation, as Dr. Malini has rightly said that, right now the need is not to look into the greening of the supply chains. It's more of, those supply chains have to be converted into value chains. So where we can bring the value. And the third way is basically circularity. So I would like to touch basically upon some examples, which I would like to tell, some of the enterprises which we are working with and how this resource efficiency is connected to them. So let me take an example of a very basic example of, a coconut chips maker. Yeah. We have one business idea which has come up that, when I'm making a coconut chips and all, we were like, okay, it's just a coconut chips making, like an industry. What is so innovative about you? Then we asked him, he said, we don't only make coconut chips out of the coconut, but we also use the coconut shells to make the wood pallets. and those wood pallets will be sold to the industries for the fuel or something. So basically, the whole circularity, you can see that he is using even the byproduct as one of its product to sell it. So basically, the total whole circularity of this only one product of coconut is being used as a as an end product of this wood pallets as well. And they also mentioned that one of the best way of doing the drying the coconut is solar drying. So they are not using energy; they are just using solar drying. So this is just one small example. Another example, if I can touch upon, is I would say giving a very good example about how the environment and the social aspect come together with the resource efficiency is in India itself, in the north part of India. I would not take the name of the organization or the enterprise right now. So in north part of India, there is one organization who we are supporting. They are actually supporting they are actually working with the local smallholder farmers, and they are training them on organic agriculture. Where does the circularity come over there? They actually train the small agriculture on to the smallholder farmers, but after the whole crop is done and all, wherever there is in the waste, agricultural waste is remaining, they actually use those agricultural waste and make the briquettes out of it. So again, coming back to using the byproduct. So mainly I would see that eco-inclusive enterprises are coming where the mainstream MSMEs or any kind of a sectors which have a byproduct, they can actually make that byproduct as a raw material and come up with a product for themselves. And another example you can take, it's very general nowadays, is actually using the plastic PET bottles and making the plastic timber poles or the paved blocks or the tiles. So in general, totally, I would like to tell that we also have done some of the interviews in terms of the COVID as well, and we realized that these kind of really small enterprises, that's why I mentioned thank you in the beginning, that when we see as a MSMEs, we should also see these kind of eco-inclusive enterprises. They are the ones actually who are actually getting affected more now, because they rely on the byproduct of some other enterprises as well. So we actually include these kind of enterprises, and we came to know that resilience, as you mentioned in the beginning, is the main key right now. And from seed also, we have come up with kind of a different tools how we can provide them basically the support in these kind of crises. So those tools are touching upon mainly the resource efficiency. So how they can actually reduce their resources in terms of actually reducing their cash flow and the cost cutting. And also they can think of basically the whole different value chain itself. So basically, they can also think in terms of what kind of a value chain they can use, where they have the they can reduce the costs, or they can also come up with a different material which is actually needed right now in the market, rather than thinking of their own business model currently. I hope I could answer your question that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Amar, for your intervention. You have comprehensively dealt with the various facets of how seed is enabling and encouraging, promoting, and incubating some of these enterprises. Colleagues who have joined us virtually for this discussion. A housekeeping announcement is on your screen you would find a chat box. Any questions, comments, reactions that you may have for the panelists, if you could type that up in the chat box. We will take up those questions by turn after the speakers have had their initial interventions. I move on to the third panelists today, and Mr. Mohit Rai Goel is the director at Motive Electric Limited. And an entrepreneur at heart, Mr. Goel has been instrumental in strategically steering the enterprise and turn around the growth, to a five-fold increase on a year-on-year basis. Mohit, you bring in an interesting characteristic into the entire conversation. How we would view is, you're a person who transforms know-how into show-how. While Dr. Mali Di Balakrishnan and Omar has talked about the principles of resource efficient cleaner production. From your perspective, your work at Motive Electric, what has been your experience? What has been the benefits that you have accrued by practicing RECP measures, and what are your future plans for continual improvement? Mr. Mohit Rai, go ahead.
Thank you, Arup. Thank you very much. So I would like to start with a very famous shlok of Bhagavad Gita, which says, Sarva parvash dukh sarvatri sukham etad vidyat samasan lakshan sukhadyo, which says, everything that is in other control is painful. All that which is in self-control is happiness. So this shlok has varied interpretation. But today, I invite you all and everybody who is watching this to explore this in a way that being is MSME. MSME is one being, and MSME tries, the entrepreneur, he or she tries to control everything which is in his or her control or capacity. Yet there are areas which he or she is aware or unaware, which goes out of control, and those areas become painful gradually. These areas, these holes, all these can be said comes into the resource efficiency and cleaner production. When an MSME starts from scratch, he or she is the most resource efficient and cleanest production ever, be it a manufacturer or a service MSME. But as gradually when he grows and increases, the holes, the little micron holes get here or there on the plate and gets out of the notice and becomes a blind spot, isn't it? So before I begin the complete, I would like to thank each one of you. Thank you, Arup, Amar, Dr. Malini, Anurag, Mr. Raghu Babu, everybody at the TERI. Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity. And it's indeed my pleasure to represent myself and the MSME fraternity on this great platform and with people like you on a greater repute. So I would share what as you just questioned me just now about my experience in implementing RECP. I would rephrase this question for myself as I would share what initiatives or hacks which helped me create this growth in my company, and how can those hacks can help everybody who's listening in the MSME. So MSME is very symbolic and to the maximum use of their resources. And everybody, when we see MSME as we see normally as they are very cheap and they are very efficient, and everyone is doing multiple hat jobs in MSME. Yet, if we see in the market right now, the large corporations are offering their services and products even cheaper than MSME, even cheaper than the micro person. And how is that possible? Where is the gap? So with the question you have just asked me, my experience, I would come down to this question right in the middle. So the gap it lies in the complete of my answer. That would be, as Dr. Malini shared that, and you shared in the starting, 29.7% of GDP is through MSME and 110 million employment and everything. So the answer is that MSME is small, MSME is scarcity of resources, but the biggest part is mindset. The second biggest part is enabling ecosystem. And the good part is that MSME is nimble and we are in numbers. If we are in 6.33 million in the country, so imagine if even if we in RECP, if we just block one hole in every MSME, that would be great in totality if we see in the RECP. So my experience has been really great while implementing the RECP measures, and thank you very much for the TERI and their engineers, research fellows who came to our company and helped us improve on a lot of areas, like LED was one, usage of limitation of use of compressed air, is saving on the energy, saving on water, saving on waste, saving and 5S, and all these things has really helped us in improving our top line in totality if we see at the end of the year. Now, if I just take you to the year of 1990s or 80s, if you remember, when we used to brush our teeth, we used to keep our tap open, right? We never used to have a habit of keeping the tap closed at those times, 1980s, 1990s. But slowly and gradually, as the water scarcity came into limelight in newspapers, media, everywhere, now we don't even keep, nowadays, we don't even keep the tap open for a second more, right? So see, the difference is that the thing which was a normal earlier becomes a habit, which was a wastage, a normal wastage earlier, now becomes a sheer wastage now, and it has come into our DNA of everyone. So in the same way, MSME is unaware. They have blind spots, and we just need to make them aware of how these things can help them economically. And yes, they also have a benefit to the environment. And yes, they also have a benefit for their future generations. So I would like to really congratulate for the initiatives by TERI, by GIZ, and all the third-party funding agencies, that they have really helped MSMEs, and by getting into their shoes, giving the right advice and implementable advice, and giving them extra hand for implementation, because every MSME owner has a limited bandwidth or a capacity, and all of this has really helped us. And to everyone who's listening in the MSME area, I would really encourage each one of you just to be aware of where these holes are. I hope I've been able to answer, Arup.
Absolutely, Mohit. And thank you so much for your encouraging words, and it is truly inspirational to see entrepreneur be part of this conversation and share your happy perspectives. Colleagues, we also have just to put into perspective some of the things that Mohit was talking about. We have a 2-minute video on the kinds of initiatives that has happened at Motive Electric. We will see the video now.
Motive Electric Limited, Delhi. We are capacitors and low voltage switchgear manufacturer. I got to know about this project through our industrial association cluster. I really appreciate about the project is that they clearly focus on the sustainability and the awareness regarding the pollution happening in the country, and specifically in the metropolitan cities. There are a points which we have inculcated recently in our company. The few of them is changing the lights from the conventional tube lights to LEDs, which save a lot of energy, using reflectors in the LEDs, which enhance the overall efficiency of the lighting. We started using air blowers instead of air compressors, so it tends to save more energy. We installed a duct over the compressor which directly reduces the room temperature. I would love to recommend this project to all the fellow industry members. I'll try to publicize the achievement so that can become a motivation factor for the other fellow members.
That was, ladies and gentlemen, touch and feel of what has happened at the what has happened at Motive Electric. Interestingly, what Mohit mentioned, two important points that I would also want to link that up to our next two panelists. Mohit talked about growth and enabling ecosystem to realize the growth objectives. Now, here today we are talking about re-emerging and resilient India. And in this context, if I would like to invite first Dr. Raghu Babu and thereafter Mr. Anurag Mishra. Dr. Raghu Babu, all of you would be aware, is an engineer and a planner by qualification and at heart, and he has been part of several leadership initiatives in this area of resource efficiency and circular economy. He himself is a qualified professional and a practitioner in this area. Dr. Raghu Babu, on the point that Mohit pointed out on the growth, and then what are the kind of enabling ecosystem that are required for achieving these growth objectives. An important aspect that comes out is the means of financing, and the means of financing, more importantly, to scale up resource efficient cleaner production practices. It would be good for all of us to hear your perspectives on the means, your perspectives on what's happening today. What are your recommendations, your thoughts, Dr. Raghu Babu. Dr. Raghu Babu, you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you, Arup. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The mic works. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Also, you've seen this little video that companies can get benefited, and it's not really sometimes very complex science and engineering. You have seen very simple solutions that were installed there, and the company is happy about what they have done there. And we have seen umpteen number of cases where people are getting a direct benefit. Especially in the energy sector, we see there's a rampant loss at various points in the processes, and it's very easy to curb those losses and make profits. So we are 100% certain when you deal with energy, you will definitely save money. And when we ask companies, why don't you scale up in your neighborhoods? Because you have in a cluster, when you see companies like Motive have saved, and they tell everybody, yeah, it's a good thing, please do it. We often do not see the need for people doing it. They don't come forward. So it was always for me, it's a surprising fact why people do not want to improve it. I think people are used to certain operations, certain profits. They are happy with those profits. And when you say you're going to make more profits, it's very strange if someone says, I don't want more profits. Yeah, but because they're also causing liabilities in terms of causing pollution or incurring more costs. So what I can see in what we offered also during our projects to the companies is, I would say 100% of the cases we handled had profits. They made money. Many times low cost, no cost, return of investments were very quick. Yeah. So we had shown them you have seen one video, but on our website you will see 50 such videos. We have 150 success stories, and almost in every case we handled, because we are so much acquainted with the operations in the MSME segment and even in the large scale segment, that there is a very certain way to make savings if you adopt our ECP techniques. Now, self-funding, I would say, is the first funding way. You fund yourself because you're going to get that money back. Yes, so you can see all these documentation and the information that's available on the net about cleaner production. GIZ is not the first organization that has done that. It has been going on for decades now. In various terminologies, we heard about eco-profit, cleaner production, RECP, industrial ecology, symbiosis. Multiple terminologies were used. At the end, in all the cases, there have been financial savings. So self-funding, I would say, is the first most important thing. The second thing, what we could, especially in the MSME segment, if you want to get experts, it can become expensive. Yeah. So one other technique that was started in Gujarat was these environment clinics. So you have experts sitting like doctors there, and you go and consult him and get solution, and you can implement those. So we had carried forward this also in one of our projects in Haridwar. And there we had made available the pool of experts, including German experts, at their doorstep, and asking them to pose their questions and get the answers to that. So we had done one other thing. We called it facilitation teams for cleaner production. So we said, please organize yourself and make a small working group of people, and you can announce a topic each week and invite the interested companies to participate in the discussions. And there in WAPI, we had very successful discussions. We had the similar things in Delhi, in Haridwar, in all the places where we worked. People are interested. They are not keeping like a trade secret what they have achieved. People are happy to share their successes. So this is a means of doing. You can set up your clinics, you can set up your facilitation teams, and you can engage experts. Pool of experts, if engaged at the cluster level, would become much cheaper and affordable for everybody in the cluster. So you can designate the days on which you would like to have consultations, and the pool of experts will be available. And this would also be a means to look forward. The other thing is the grant schemes from the government. Most interesting grant scheme in which I was involved myself, Industrial Policy Gujarat 2015, which has been revised in 2020, and which is much more attractive. So the cleaner production has a budget, a funding provision of 35 lakh rupees. If you make any substitution of materials, or if you reduce water consumption, energy, and waste. And not only that, if you go for zero liquid discharge, you can get up to 75 lakh rupees. If you go for common infrastructure, often, for example, in cleaner production process, instead of having your own boilers, you can rely on a common boiler. You can rely on a common so this can amount to, they're giving a subsidy of 50 crore rupees. They're giving 25 crores for retrofitting. And if you carry your polluting industry to a retrofitting area, you get about 25 crore rupees. And for common boilers, 2 crore rupees. No, it's lucrative to look into that. But I can tell you, we actually had once a consultation with the industry, and most of them are not using the schemes and are not even aware of the schemes. And it is a surprise for us that why people do not want to use the schemes. In Telangana, Industrial Policy 2020, they are also giving 25% subsidy for cleaner production up to 5 lakh rupees. So all over you will find there are different grant schemes. Similarly, bank financing is another approach. SIDBI has got a sustainable financing scheme, for example. So they would finance green buildings, anything to deal with sustainability, BE's rating or green buildings certification. So there are different kind of funding things. In addition to that, organization GIZ, we do not finance or we do not give grant funding, but we do support and propagate these ideas. And we have agencies like UNIDO have been deploying these cleaner production tools for decades now. They have toolboxes, they have their handbooks, case studies, umpteen numbers of that available. Yeah, so I would say that, you know, this is there are a lot of opportunities and there are a lot of possibilities for getting the money back and making profits and savings, and so you just have to use it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Raghubabu. And herein on the same question on growth and enabling ecosystem, may I also invite Mr. Anurag Mishra. Mr. Mishra has over 20 years of work experience in the development sector, covering climate, energy, economic growth, sustainability, regional cooperation, and importantly in key infrastructural sectors: energy, highways, industrial estates, urban development. Mr. Mishra, earlier today we heard Ramona talk about how energy and clean air are central to USAID's collaboration and presence in India. From your perspective, the successes, the challenges in implementation of resource efficiency, energy efficiency initiatives in MSME, keeping in mind the growth and the enabling ecosystem context. Mr. Anurag Mishra.
Thank you, Arup, and greetings to all my fellow panelists. So I'm sure all of us agree that energy is the most common resource used by all the MSMEs we can think of. But it also kind of makes a very important component which drives business competitiveness. It may vary according to different sector, but definitely energy becomes a very important cost segment for most of the MSMEs. So in terms of successes, I definitely like to share our collaboration with Institute of Sustainable Communities, one of the organizers for this event, and kind of share some of the real on-the-ground action. So with the ISC USA, it has been kind of running this program called Clean Energy Accelerator project under our EHS Plus setup program. Since the launch of this initiative, we have done kind of a lot of things around energy interventions, working with a specific cluster in Tirupur, which is kind of focused mostly on the textile industry. And from this 2.5 years of our initiative, we were able to come out with some really significant impacts. And I would not say that these are significant from the perspective of the country, but from that cluster itself, it's quite a very significant. And also kind of provides a kind of a good insights in terms of what is possible, but also kind of helps us understand the challenges faced by MSMEs in adopting energy efficiency technologies. So from this program, we were able to kind of work with a number of factories and train their factory managers across the practices in energy efficiency and installing clean energy technologies and maintaining these technologies. We were also able to help these industries to kind of reduce the use of natural resources like firewood and coal. Effective kind of implementation of energy efficiency measures, and some numbers to kind of quote is like around 340,000 metric tons of carbon emissions reduced through this kind of interventions on energy efficiency side, and also kind of help them install a lot of solar resources. So while we talk about energy efficiency, we are also looking into source of energy which can also be cleaner and more sustainable for these industries. So all of this kind of achieved through several technological and capacity building interventions. So let me kind of just give a few examples of the technologies which we kind of use and help the industries to achieve more efficient production. And the first of it is the use of VFDs. And this is something which was kind of used for induced draft and the forced draft fans in the boilers, so that the boilers have kind of optimal air and fuel ratio, which can kind of help them kind of reduce their kind of a fuel consumption. And this intervention which we did in one of the unit has a payback of fewer than 3 months. So you can imagine how fast the paybacks can happen with some of the low-hanging fruits. And hearing Dr. Raghu Babu that if somebody has to make their own investment, I think looking at these interventions which are low-hanging and have a very small payback, probably that's the best use of it rather than trying to go forward and talk to other banks and investors. And similarly, the same technology of VFD was used in pumps so that one can match the hand flow requirements in a most efficient way. The second technology which we kind of looked into is the waste heat recovery and how it can be used. So in one of the industry, the heat from the flue gas, which was like almost like 204 degrees centigrade, was kind of successfully captured and used to preheat the boiler feed water, which means on one side you are capturing the waste heat which is kind of being generated, but then also reducing the input of energy for the boiler. The same again, the payback less than a year, significant energy cost savings. One other intervention on the waste heat recovery was the low-grade waste heat recovery, where the waste heat was recovered from the effluent which was discharged by the textile industries and used for other thermal application. The third and the last example I'll give is the technology where introducing very small operational change in the air compressor to really kind of adjust the cutoff pressure from 8.4 kilograms per centimeter to 7.5 kilograms per centimeter has kind of actually provided a kind of a significant saving as just a kind of operational change. It's a 1 month payback period and then a kind of a ongoing savings of around 350,000 rupees every year for that industry. So these are kind of some of the examples which kind of really show that there is a huge potential and can be kind of adapted and used for improving the energy efficiency at the MSME sector. But in this process, we also learned that there are several barriers and challenges to implementing energy efficiency. And I will categorize them in like 4 buckets. I know we are kind of short of time, so I will not get into details of explaining that, but kind of quite obvious. The first one, which most of other panelists kind of quoted, is the issue of awareness and the knowledge gap. For MSMEs to know what is the best technology, what are the best operational practices, also the skilled manpower available to kind of support the industries and MSMEs to understand this and adopt it is kind of one of the big challenges. Second is the lack of technical support, and this is something which is quite important for the SME sector, is that each unit is kind of unique and you cannot just kind of come out with a technology and say that, okay, everybody go and adopt it. It has to be kind of adapted to that specific MSME, and that is where you require kind of a more handholding from different types of stakeholders. And also monitoring templates, like, okay, for MSME to really know what I'm getting into and what this is going to deliver to me is quite important to really know what the real savings are. The third bucket I'll say is the kind of a technical performance, and there's always kind of a hesitation or reluctance for implementing kind of a new technologies by any industry. And that's again true for MSMEs, because any new technology you would like to know what is the technical performance, has somebody adopted it, and is it working, is it sustainable and all. And that is where again these pilots and initiatives can play a role. And the final one is the financial barriers, and Dr. Raghu Babu really spoke about the different ways these can be financed. So I will not get into that, but definitely these 4 things, financial barriers, technical performance issues, lack of technical support, and awareness and knowledge gaps are the key barriers and challenges for MSMEs to adopt energy efficiency measures. So I'll just stop here and happy to kind of come back with more kind of responses to any specific question you have. Thank you. Over.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mishra. This has been, a spot on, putting this into, the four buckets. Colleagues, this is an, interesting conversation, and, I'll be the culprit to, cut all of you short because we are, seriously running out of time. But what I would, like to do is, go back to, each one of you and and probably in a minute or max in a minute, if you could reflect upon your your reactions and perspectives. Mr. Mishra talked about the four buckets of of the challenges. If I may begin with Mohit. Mohit, what would be your one point message for your fellow entrepreneurs?
Yes, can you hear me? Yes. So for the fellow entrepreneurs and to all the implementing agencies, everyone, I would like to make a statement here that there are not the 4 M's of manufacturing: man, machine, material, method. In fact, there are 7 M's, and those 3 M's are at the bottom of the pyramid. Those 3 M's are measurement, money, and mindset. Measurement, money, and mindset. These 3 are even more important right now to re-emerge as to re-emerge MSMEs, re-emerge India, resilient India, and by this I mean by re-strengthening MSMEs, we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohit. And that was nail on the head: measurement, money, and mindset. If I can quickly go to Dr. Mali Di Balakrishnan. So measurement, money, and mindset. So if I am eager to join, if I am an MSME, I'm eager to join. I have I've put together the jigsaw puzzle in terms of the money and the funding, and I'm willing to invest my time on the measurement. How would you, Dr. Balakrishnan, how would you recommend we kind of we can go work with clusters? How would you? What are the top line thoughts from your side? Which you as a domain expert would look at. How do you do the selection of who receives the ICT services? And Dr. Balakrishnan.
So I think the very first point is to understand what are the pain points of the MSMEs. In Chennai, if it is water, then you focus on water. In some other location, if energy costs are very high, then you focus on the energy costs. So essentially in that cluster, in that segment, you try to understand what is it that the MSMEs are really facing the problems, and essentially try to allay those. It is also very important to show the business case that you do this, you save this much. And environmental benefits are essentially co-benefits, which you get as a result. And here, I think it is important that the service provider is also someone whom they would trust, because they also have to divulge a lot of data. So essentially, they would like that there is no harm comes to them because of some punitive measures. So essentially, there is a certain level of trust also which you build. So we look for the attitude as well. What mindset Mohit mentioned. If an industry or an enterprise is willing and is open, then it is so much more easier to just go ahead and implement with them.
Thank you, Dr. Balakrishnan. On the same point, the measurement, money, and mindset. If I can go back to the other panelists, Dr. Raghu Babu, Amar, and Mr. Anurag Mishra, all of you, work across geographies. So, if I may ask you to come in here to, to point out, one of the lessons learned from, from similar, programs, similar initiatives from the other geographies that we in India can replicate, emulate, and implement to realize the vision of a re-emerging and a resilient India. If I may start with Dr. Raghu Babu, followed by Mr. Anurag Mishra, and then Amar.
Yeah. Yeah, this is an important question, yeah, that you are asking. Yeah. See, when it comes to the individual MSMEs in particular, I think they have several problems associated with them in their day-to-day business. One of the problems that we see a significant difference from the European industrial clusters and Indian clusters. In Europe, in Germany in particular, you have a management body in the industrial estate, which takes care of the whole industrial estate's requirements. Yeah. So that kind of an entity we do not have in India. So these are mostly industrial associations who are trying to offer these kind of services, which anyway they cannot, because these are honorary jobs for them. They have a full-time business to deal with. So in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, they call them as industrial area local authorities, notified authorities in certain places, but these are not full-time. So this is one of the difficulties. So all the time we speak about ease of business, but what is that exactly? Now, how do we translate? So in our own assessment, we found a lot of loss of opportunities in the industrial clusters, because you might have seen a lot of encroachments in the industrial clusters because those businesses were required and were not there, whether it is restaurants or transport or kiosks and even weighing bridges and a lot of other common infrastructure. These are all business opportunities, and somehow industries have been managing by themselves individually, because there is nothing in the industrial estate and everything has to be coordinated and managed by them in the industrial estate in their plot. And this is one thing which is distinctly different from other countries to our operations in India. So I think very important for us is to inculcate the sense of togetherness, for which we need structures. It's not just about attitude. We need to create structures. Once the structures are in place, this would work. So yes, GIZ, wherever we work, we created that kind of a togetherness, and that has been one of the starting points for success. So this is something we should really look at it.
Thank you, Dr. Raghubabu. Mr. Mishra, from your perspective, one or two lessons learned that that all of us should take home.
Sure. I think one of the things which we kind of learned from this experience is availability of local ecosystem, and I think Dr. Raghubabu is also kind of alluding to the same thing. And there are different ways this can be served, and I'm kind of looking at new services which can be offered by a kind of a set of stakeholders, which will allow these industries to look into the 3 M's of measurement, money, and mindset. And that is where you have to look for more kind of a sustainable, kind of a market-based approach, rather than trying to do it through the industry associations, which may not have a direct business interest in pushing for it. So look for an ecosystem, but then also see that it is more local and it is also sustainable and market-oriented. Over.
Thank you, Mr. Mishra. Amar, your recommendations and take-home points.
Sure. So again, I will touch upon basically the eco-inclusive enterprises. So I would recommend actually 3 actions for the eco-inclusive enterprises for the like the ecosystem of eco-inclusive enterprises to be the post-COVID recovery. The first point is most immediate is the remedial action, that is to reduce the financial burden on MSMEs in hardest hit sectors. Basically, just to give you an example, it can be the direct finance aid with some special funds to the MSMEs, or it can also be something which is very innovative, something like an insurance scheme that can actually be against to the MSMEs or to the employees for this kind of pandemic shocks. And the second point is basically, the second action is basically about capacity development in order to eco-inclusive MSMEs to be better equipped with management and accessing the finance, and again, business acquisition, and generally building more resilience into their business models itself. So that kind of a capacity building ecosystem has to be also very resilient and also be made very innovative. And the last point, which is going to be needed in the midterm to the long term, is to design the policies and instruments that optimize the operation and environment for the eco-inclusive MSMEs to thrive. So as I again said in the beginning that, sometimes they don't come in the mainstream. So the policies and instrument should come in such a way that they can actually optimize their operations in terms of bringing them to the mainstream.
Thank you so much, Amar. Colleagues, we have absolutely run out of time, and may I take this opportunity to thank all the speakers in today's session. Colleagues, who have joined us virtually on the on this platform. This session clearly points out 4 key messages to put into perspective RECP in realizing re-emerging and resilient India. Number one, implementation of resource efficiency measures are clearly linked to the continuing growth, competitiveness, and well-being of the MSME units. Number 2, we should leverage local ecosystems, local structures to generate awareness on how enterprises across sectors have cut down on cost by implementing resource efficiency measures. Number 3, the critical role of the eco-inclusive enterprises towards enabling and realizing or translating the resource efficiency principles into practice. And the last point, number 4, enhanced access to financing that and enabling policies that would be catalyst and game changer for this transition that we are talking about. Like the minister, honorable minister Shri Suresh Prabhu earlier pointed out, job growth and sustainability are essentially the mantra for the Build Back Better narrative for India. And once again, on behalf of ISC and the TERI team, I'd like to thank for all of your presence with us today. We hope you enjoyed the session like ourselves hosting you, and we intend to bring similar engaging sessions to you. I am signing off, and we look forward to your participation in our upcoming engagements. But before we part ways, what we will leave with you is a 2-minute clip on one of the yet one of the examples, real life, real time examples of how resource efficiency production is beneficial for the MSME units. Also, pointing out the fact that resource efficiency production, the principles works across sector. What the panel also pointed out. Thank you. Bye bye, and have a great evening.
Thank you. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Started their business 26 years back. We are in the manufacturing of namkeens, cookies, and ready-to-eat sweets products. We have lights, we have using this CFL. They have highlighted the issues, so we have changed the CFL to LED lights. We have changed the height fixture from the ceiling to reduce the height of that lights, so that number of lights are also reduced. We have the steam kettles where leakages are there. We have changed the gaskets leakages where we have captured all the leakages and replaced that gaskets. One more point I have highlighted, the collection of the steam. So we recollect the steam condensate and in one big tank, and after that we are recirculating that water again in our process. So it's very beneficial to us. We've captured the steam leakages in all the boilers, steam kettles. In the cold room, we generally have the lights, but they have suggested like put a switch on outside the cold room, so that when you want to go inside, then you just switch on the light, and then it's also help in the energy conservation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Prahlad. Thank you, Kuhu.
Thank you, Dr. Raghu Babu. Thank you, Dr. Malini.